Well, hello everyone. Welcome to week 4. We're coming right to the end of the sleep section of the course, and so we get to wrap that up this week. So I guess I wanted to start with a couple of thoughts on the sleep piece as we wrap it up, but certainly don't get rid of it. But we wrap it up formally anyway and move our way into more stress management. But and then I'll I think give a couple comments about meditation and stress as we move into that space there. But as far as the sleep piece goes, we're finishing up our work with Walker, and I hope as you move into the final week of our formal reading and discussions about sleep that you're moving into a space of okay, so now what? I have this information. It appears to be really important. It's certainly been pretty interesting to kind of put pieces together. But now what do I do with that? And what does that mean for me personally? What does it mean for the patients and clients that I work with? And what does it mean for family members, friends, loved ones? Also, so there's I think a lot of places to go with this for you at this point, but I think it's a good question for you to ask yourself about what next, and not just on the practical side, which I hope this is happening, of saying, well, maybe I should give a little more, if I'm not already, importance to the sleep that I'm getting. And maybe offering more to the folks I work with relative to sleep and how it relates to so many other things. But in the broader context also, to say, okay, what's the issue here from the big question standpoint that we hope we're getting to in learning this information. Why are we as a society not getting enough sleep? Why is there a stigma associated with perhaps with sleep as a sign of weakness? That sleep is a non-activity where we're just sort of dormant for a while, and we should be productive and perhaps doing things, and we're not. We're just laying there doing nothing, and it's kind of it's got this stigma of being lazy. Unfortunately, we know we don't know a lot as we should, or certainly don't pay attention to the importance of rest and repair and recuperation and revive and all of those types of words that would describe, we do all of this go, 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 and what do we need in order to build ourselves back so that we can continue to move forward. And so, it takes rest. I think, a really good example of that, I think athletes appreciate this, that you have very challenging workouts, but then you have to do some type of recovery, and recovery doesn't just mean getting the right hydration and of course getting the right nutrition, but it also means getting the right rest, because you can't then do it the next time if you're not repairing and resting and so forth. But I think that goes for everyday life too. And I think we don't appreciate that as much. And so our lives tend to be fast-paced. They tend to be a bit more stressful than what we'd hope that they would be most of the time. And all of that takes rest and recovery and repair. And as we know now from reading the last few weeks, that sleep is probably the top of the list of things that we need for that. So anyway, asking the bigger questions about why do we not go there? Why do we not appreciate this as much, perhaps in our society, but bringing it in even closer to saying, well, what about my community, or what about my workplace? What about my my family inside the four walls of my house? What's that culture like to support the needed rest that we now know so greatly we need to have? To have not just better health, but probably more importantly, quality of life. So those are just some final thoughts, I think, on sleep as we wrap this up with Walker's work. But sleep carries over into the stress piece, and I hope at least that you've been able to make those connections now, just to realize that sleep is really important in order for us to help manage a stress level, an adequate stress level, and it's also, you're looking at it from the stress side, that sleep is important for stress and management, and stress management is important to get adequate sleep. They both come together and very nicely, and I think that's why maybe this class works well, to put these two topics together. So yeah, I think it's a nice transition now, moving from this foundational work of sleep to say, and I think I mentioned this before, that I think if we're going to try to move forward in any of our ways we want to for personal or professional goals, that sleep has to be one of our top priorities. And as I mentioned, I think I have in the past, that when I work with folks on in our lifestyle medicine program, that is one of the most important questions I ask is how will you be able to make sleep work for you from a quality wise, but mostly from a quantity standpoint? Is there a plan that can allow for more sleep, and is there a commitment there and some goals, and is that how much of a priority is that? Those are important questions to ask, because if we're not getting the adequate sleep, as we know now, that it makes it really difficult to do the other things we want to do, like getting in better shape, or maybe training for some event, if you're looking at it from a physical side, but maybe from an eating side of being able to eat the right foods. We know sleep is really important for that, or maybe to have better relationships, or to have job performance, or whatever the goals might be. That sleep is very fundamental in that whole process there. So now we kind of have that as our starting point, and now we move to stress, and stress is, as we'll start to talk about next week. We won't get into too much of it today, but stress is as we know, it's a really big topic, and there's a lot of angles we can go from this, and we'll start with looking at the pathophysiology, so we can start making connections there, just as we did for sleep, because it tends to be a good entry point for a lot of our topics, that we look at the science piece first, and then we move in a direction that perhaps is connected, but maybe not obviously. So the pathophysiology, or the biology or the science piece, is always a good starting or entry point to look at the significance of this, and that's what we'll do for stress too. So the first week we'll be looking at how stress affects our bodies, and how stress actually works within our system, and what kind of outcomes, negative outcomes we get. There are some positive outcomes too, but mostly negative from a chronic stress standpoint is the way we'll look at it anyway. And so that'll be our starting point, and then we'll branch off from there. So you'll continue to do your sleep diary, even though we are finishing up the sleep section. You'll keep going with that for the rest of the 8 weeks, because as we talked about in the past, it's important to start recognizing these patterns, and it starts with an awareness, and that starts with just a tool that we can use to write things down and be able to keep track. And then once we start doing that, then we can take a next step of hopefully recognizing some connections with how sleep and the factors that affect sleep positively and negatively are connected, and that there might be some patterns that we can recognize that'll help us then to change some behaviors to get better sleep, and from a quality side, but then also a quantity side as well. So it's important to keep those sleep diaries going through the rest of the course. And then there's just a few points. I think the rest of this, I'd like to talk about the meditation piece of this, and it continues to come up because it's an important topic, but also it's a new topic perhaps for many people. So one of the things too, I wrote a few notes on this just to make sure that I was remembering to say a few things here at this point in the course, and hopefully you realize that the purpose of working in meditation to this course is not just connected to sleep. Doing meditation has been shown to promote better sleep. And so that's part of it there, and that's one of the reasons we start with it in the first, from meditation from the beginning and carry it through all 8 weeks. Is there is a sleep connection there, but that certainly is not the the whole piece. It's not the entire benefit to it, but that there is definitely other connections and other benefits from doing meditation. And so as you are continuing to expand your experience with this, and maybe you've tried different methods, maybe you've been jumping from one thing to another because maybe one day this didn't work so well, and so now I'm going to try a new method the next day because yesterday it just didn't go very well, it didn't feel right, and that's totally fine. What the purpose of this is do some exploration and being able to try different methods so that you can perhaps land on something that you feel comfortable with. The one piece of advice I would give you with this, though, is rarely do people out of the gate have success doing any type of meditation for the first time, and that you try it one day and that perhaps it didn't go very well. And then sometimes it's easy to just say, well, that's not for me, I'm going to try something else. I would encourage you to, if you're struggling with one, to be a bit patient with that whatever technique that you're trying, and to do it for a few days, maybe a week or so, and see how it goes over time, because there is a little bit of a learning curve with this. One of the primary pieces of meditation is that you turn off the thinking mind, and you move to a different space. And that is not easy for us to do. It's not easy for anyone to do. It seems to be a default in our operating system up here that we want this thing to keep working and churning and doing something all the time. So it's hard to turn that off, and most would say nearly impossible, and maybe that's the case. But down-regulating it would be maybe the objective if we can't fully turn it off. And certainly there's a lot of evidence to show that is very helpful. So that's a difference between reflection, as we do a lot of reflection papers, as you know, in this program and others at Creighton. And there's a difference between reflection and meditation, and that reflection is really a guided process of thinking. And so that it is mostly using your cognitive abilities still in a guided and hopefully controlled way to do reflection, whether it's reflection that you're sitting quietly reflecting, or you're journaling reflecting, or you're writing out papers, as we sometimes do, reflecting. There's a lot of different ways for that, but that's still using your cognitive minds. So if what you've done so far as a meditation method is to sit and reflect, maybe trying to go beyond that and to not have your cognitive mind working so hard as we do sometimes in reflection, but to actually try to certainly downturn that thing or try to turn it off completely. And that's a differentiation between meditation and reflection. So it's getting our thinking minds to not work, at least for a short time. But as you have already experienced, it's almost impossible, if not actually impossible, to actually turn that thing off for a long period of time. If we can manage to get a few seconds before our control tower starts working again, where we have to then intervene and say, oh well, with the thoughts that come in, and just let them go by and then go back to that space. If we can do that for even just a few seconds, and then have the as naturally these thoughts come recurring again, and we just passively let them go. If we can keep, it's not about, okay, here's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned today is meditation is not a performance effort. It's not where you're going to get graded on an A, B, and C. And certainly this isn't something to be looked at as saying, I'm really good at meditation because I can not have thoughts come in, for whatever X time period you put on this performance thing. Don't look at meditation as being a performance issue here, and you're trying to be really good at it, or that you beat yourself up because you're not very good at it. That happens more often than not, as people say, I'm just not good at meditation. That's not the point. It's not about trying to be good at it. The point is your intention to do it. And as some have said in the past, it's not about your attention, it's about your intention. And what that means is when you're in a meditation state or a meditation practice, and that squirrel brain takes over and you just start rolling with thoughts and you just drift off into thought, and then pretty soon you figure out you're in thought and you have to reel yourself back in and passively let those thoughts go and return back to your meditative state. That process is really important. And I think a good way to think about this is that it's repetitive failure. And I like to think of it that way, in that it's really important. One of the really good side effects to meditation is that you become okay with failure. Most of us are not. And this is a repeated failure event. You're guaranteed to fail because you can't stay in this, meditation state forever. You can't hold that pattern for most of us for more than, a few seconds or a few minutes if we're lucky. So we're guaranteed to fail. And part of this is being okay with that. And the repetitive pattern of saying to yourself, I recognize that I have thoughts coming back in, and now I passively let them go, with a response that says, oh, well, they're there, and I just passively let them go. There's something very important about that activity that is transcending to something very much larger that we will get to in the stress piece of this, that it's not, a performance thing that I have to be really good at all of this stuff. The I think paradoxical maybe benefit of meditation is that you're not good at it, and that you are okay with not being good at it, and that the response is a letting go of that. And that repetitive pattern of letting go and then refocusing yourself into meditation is really important, and that's the point of it. The point is not to be able to hold a meditation state for as long as possible. The point of it is to let the thoughts go when they come in and bring yourself back. It's about the intention of bringing yourself back to the meditative state, not how long you can hold it there. Okay, so this may happen hundreds of times, probably do in a 20 minutes of meditation, that you fail hundreds of times, and your repetitive pattern is an letting go, and that's the point. That's the benefit. If you can get yourself there to be okay with letting go of the failure, then you're making some tremendous progress. Okay, and the last point I wanted to make about this is a very gradual process. This isn't a flash in the pan where I did meditation for 5 days in a row and I'm a brand new person. It doesn't work like that. It is a very gradual process over time. And so if you were expecting to, have this grand transformation after doing meditation for 3 weeks in IHW 653, you probably are disappointed in it so far. That's not the way it's intended to work, and it just isn't the way it happens. So there is a patience piece to this, that we look at the long arc of time of doing this type of practice, and over time you will absolutely realize that things are changing. Sometimes they're hard to explain, but there is a noticeable change over time. And it's that, again, that repetitive pattern that we just talked about. That is part of the root of the beauty, the secret of doing meditation. So those are just a few comments about the meditation piece, and then where we are in the class so far. So again, everybody's doing so well in this class, and I've just been so impressed with the level of reflection and discussions that we're having. So keep up the great work. Keep me posted if I can help you with anything, and we'll be in touch again soon. Thanks.